Hi everyone, my name is Jarek from Genius Gecko and welcome to the BigPicture Training video. During this training, we'll be going step by step through BigPicture configuration that will allow us to address a use case that I've picked for this training and that I think will be very interesting and helpful for a lot of you. Sadly, due to the length of this video, we won't be able to cover all the big picture features as we'll doing during our full training videos or full training, whether it is online training or live training. But if you're interested in that, visit our webpage. So let's talk about the use case that we'll be trying to cover. So I'm thinking about doing the implementation for a company that has portfolio of multiple projects. Part of these projects are delivered in an agile manner and part of them are waterfall or hybrid approaches that mix both waterfall and agile elements. Teams that are working on all of these projects are global. That means that we have several teams in the company and each of these teams contribute to all of the projects or several of them. So the goals for our configurations is, first of all, to have good overview of each separate project. Secondly, to be able to do the planning for each project separately, but also have an overview on the higher level, on the portfolio level. We want to see overall health of all of our projects. And last important element is that we want to have possibility of managing resources on the project level, but because our teams are global teams contributing to many projects, we need to have availability to check what is the allocations of a team for multiple projects at once. Before we jump into big picture configuration, let's talk about what big picture is. So BigPicture is an app working on top of Jira. So you can install it on your Jira instance. After you'll do that, you'll have the BigPicture menu available on the top. And because it works on top of Jira, it was designed to use Jira data. So basically, most of the information that you'll see in BigPicture will be information coming from Jira issues. So if you log time on your issue, you'll see this information in several places in BigPicture. If you'll create a new link on your issues, you will see this information in BigPicture. But this works also the other way around. If you'll do something in BigPicture, this will be reflected on Jira issues. So I will be returning to that. This is very important. It allows to remove a lot of overhead that is normally associated with planning and managing the project. Because if employee does something on the issue, puts a comment, changes the status, logs work, you instantly see the progress in BigPicture. You do not have to go to the user to ask him, hey, what's the progress on this task, or when it will be done. You see this in BigPicture. So this is very important, and we will be returning to this many times. You'll see examples of that during the training. So after the BigPicture got installed, we have this menu, as I mentioned, and we have a home view. So this is what I'm actually displaying right now. The home shows us all the boxes that we created in BigPicture. Now, what is the box? This is BigPicture concept, and the boxes are basically a bags for tickets. So you can see that here I have multiple boxes. So the home box is the highest level one. It always exists. It covers everything that we decided to put into BigPicture. And on lower level, we have some other boxes that I created. So you can see that, for example, here I have box project portfolio. It represents my portfolio, and underneath I have several other boxes for projects. And in the lower level, under the hybrid project, I have some phases, boxes representing phases. So for example, for this classic project house build, we decided that particular issues or set of issues that we want to are inside of this box. So of course they are still in Jira, they are still in Jira projects, but we decided that BigPicture should take these issues and consider them part of this box. So all the information that we'll see in this box, like here information about the status, is coming from this particular set of issues. So we will be configuring new boxes, so you will see how to put issues into the box. But yeah, it's important to understand that information that you're seeing here is decided by the issues that are in the box, and this is decided by us in the end. So what else do we see here? We see the structure of the boxes. We see some information. So we have here information about leaders, about status of a box. In this case, also about statuses of a task in the box and some other columns. What is really nice about this view is we can, clicking here, manage columns, put some additional information here. So for example, we could put information about, let's say, estimate. How much time we estimated for all the tasks, on all the tasks that are within the box. So you can see that here in the use cases box, we actually estimated all work for 16 weeks. And we can also add a column for, let's say, time spent on tasks. And yeah, in most, I think I did not log any time on my tasks, but basically it would show us also information how much time we spent. So in this view, you are able to decide what kind of information you want to see and have a general overview of what actually is the progress or the status of the work in your boxes. So already BigPictures in this first view provides us pretty good overview, and we can actually decide what we want to see. So we can adapt this view according to our needs. Okay, now let's look into one of the boxes. Maybe I'll remove two of the columns just to have a bit more space over here. Let's look into one of the boxes and check what we actually see there, what the boxes themselves provide us with. So let's go into house build box. I'll hide this part for a moment. And here at the top, we have the module picker. So each box has several different modules. We can actually manage which modules are visible and available for each of the boxes. But let's for now go with the list that we have here. And each of these modules provides us slightly different view on the data that we have in the box and is used for slightly different things. So by default in this box, we have displayed the Gantt chart, and it basically shows us the Gantt chart. So the list of all the issues that we have within the box. So you may remember I've said that we are deciding what issues from Jira are being put into the box. So here we see all of them, and we see the timeline. We see all the issues put on the timeline. So we see where they start, where they end, and we see the dependencies between these issues shown as this kind of an arrows between the issues. So if I click on one of these issues, I will open it. You will see that these dependencies are represented on issue level as links between issues. So let's try to click this. Let's go into this one and let's see what we have here. So you can see that, yeah, we have issue links and we have links with other issues. It says this has to be done after issue with ending 6, but before issue with ending 7. Makes sense. This is what we've seen on the Gantt a moment before. We also see start and end date here. These are the same dates that are visible on our Gantt chart. So basically, if we modify end date of an issue on the Gantt chart, this end date will be modified also on the issue level, and it works the other way around. So if we update the end date here, the Gantt chart will be updated. Okay, so let's return to the Gantt chart. here we are. Okay, so we can see the timeline of our tasks. We can see how the tasks are grouped. So you can see that at the moment my tasks are grouped into several higher level tasks. Here in the design we have some lower level tasks, and we can see this also on the Gantt chart. So basically the tasks that are on the higher level that do not have any children are represented in a bit different way than children elements. At the moment, I have blocked here the possibility of editing the timeline or basically moving the tasks on the timeline, because I do not want to mess everything just by accident, by drag and dropping something. But in general, it is possible that we could move the tasks to the future. It would push all the tasks that are dependent on this task also to the future, so we do not have to change everything manually. We wouldn't have to move each task by themselves. So yeah, this is the Gantt chart. There's way more to talk about here, but as I mentioned, due to the lack of time and the focus, I want to show you how to configure certain stuff. We won't be going into a lot of details today. There are other videos on our channel that goes a bit deeper into Gantt itself. But let's look a bit at other modules that will be interesting to us during this training. So we have also resource module. Resource module basically shows us on the left side list of all of our resources. This can be either individual users or teams. Teams can be defined in the separate module here. And for each of these resources, we have some additional information. So we can see on the timeline what tasks are assigned to this particular person or team. And we see, in this case, what is the remaining capacity of this person and what is the workload for this person. So you can see that here, when no tasks are assigned, basically this person has 8 hours of remaining capacity. Here, when some task is assigned, the remaining capacity drops to 5.3 hours, but the allocation, the workload assigned to the person is indicated as 2.7. We can click on this information to see where the workload comes from. So at the moment, we see that there are 2 issues, but only one provides any value. Second is probably not estimated at all. So we have some estimate here, original estimate on this task. And this estimate is spread evenly across all the days for which we have planned this task for. So we can see that basically, it's 2.7 hours per day. Or actually, it's a bit different because I'm in the different mode. So at the moment, here we see how much time this person spent per day on this task, and we see here how much work is remaining spread over the planned period. So at the moment we see that probably this person is over allocated for the remaining of this task. So either this person will have to spend additional time, or we need to replan this task, like for example, making it longer so that the effort is spread over more days. I could switch to the different view, original estimate effort mode, and this will not consider how much time was locked on the issue. This will just look at the original estimate and spread it evenly across all the days that we have for this task. So you see that now we are in yellow. That means we are close to over allocating this person, but it's still okay. And it's 6.7 hours per day of work. This is simplified effort mode, the original estimate. It just takes into consideration what was estimated. I prefer to have a remaining estimate effort mode because it allows us to track also the progress. Here we've seen that the progress in the past few days was not sufficient, and that's why we went into being over allocated for remaining of the task. But this mode requires users to lock time on issues. This is not always the case. Yeah, so here we are able to reassign the task, see if individuals or teams have enough capacity to do the tasks, and if not, we need to do something about that. So here we are heavily overestimated, but that's probably because this particular team starting from today actually or tomorrow does not have any capacity. This is second interesting module. It will be especially interesting for the case where we want to see the allocation of a team even in a project, but also allocation of a team across multiple projects. So we'll get into this. And the other two modules that I want to mention now is teams. Here we can define what kind of teams are available for our box. And reports, it shows us some, as the name suggests, some reports about our box. So I won't be discussing this in depth, but there are two things in the reports that I think that are very, very useful. Okay, so we briefly discussed what are the boxes and what kind of information we can see in the boxes. Let's get our hands dirty and start configuring stuff. So as I mentioned, we want to configure setup for a company that has multiple projects, and we want to see the information about each specific project, but also an overview. So I will keep these boxes as they are. Let's just ignore them. What we want to do is to, under Home, create a new box, and it will be our portfolio box. So it will cover every single one project that we have within our company. So it will be pretty straightforward. Let's add new one, new box. We can do it by clicking here. Type portfolio. This is what we want to keep, and let's call it training portfolio. We need to pick the end date. I will pick something 2 years from now. This end date can later be changed, so in the beginning it's, you do not be particularly worried about picking an exact correct date for the end of your portfolio. You can also see here that data aggregation only creates sub-boxes next. Portfolio boxes are a bit specific, so we are not deciding for them what issues are going into the box. Normally, we would have here possibility of selecting the project from which the issues should be pulled into, but for the portfolios, the lower level boxes decided what is in the portfolio. So we're just creating a portfolio, that's it. And now we want to create our project boxes. So let's start doing that. We could click obviously here, add new, but we want to create a lower level box under portfolio. So we are create here. Click this indent the level. This will tell BigPicture that we want to create a child of this training portfolio and not something on the same level. So we'll click here and you'll see that actually we have different set of box types defined. We won't be going very deeply into box types, but we will be using two of the default ones. So we will be using Agile project and hybrid project. For the beginning, it's sufficient. So let's go with a first Agile project now. Let's just call it Agile Project 1 because I have the same name from what I remember for my Jira projects. And we'll pick a date next year. Good. And you can see that here, unlike on the portfolio level, we actually can pick Jira project that goes into the scope of portfolio. So I will pick Agile Project 1. This is one of the Jira projects that I created earlier. And that's it for now. So I will create it. And you'll see in a few moments that new box is created. The data here will appear in a moment. BigPicture needs to, iterate through everything that is within the box and put summary here. But we can already enter the box, and you can see that I already have some information here. So I'm now in the scope module, but if I'll switch into Gantt chart, you see that I have several epics. We have some structure of tasks. So under epics, we have tasks assigned to these epics. Under these tasks, we have subtasks that were assigned to these epics. At the moment, there is no start and end date. By default, BigPicture sets the start date for today, but we can start working on this already. So we could, for example, create a dependency here, make this task longer, and you can see that basically BigPicture updates everything automatically. So we see that this subtask 2 is dependent on subtask 1, and because of that, subtask or task 1 has to end on 6th of October because, yeah, I've expanded this one. This one was moved into the future due to the dependency. Everything makes sense. But that's not agile planning. We are in agile project, right? So let's get back into the home view. Overview. Okay. For agile project, what BigPicture requires is to have sub-boxes. So each time box that we have in our box, so for example, for Scrum, it will be each sprint, needs to have a lower level box that represents this sprint. So let's add that kind of a box. Let's indent this. We need to remember that we want now to be create a children box of this agile project. So we are indenting this, and we have two options to pick: program increment and iteration. Let's go for the straight iteration. Program increment is usually used for the projects that are done in safe approach scaled agile framework. Let's pick iteration and just create it. Okay, we won't be configuring scope at the moment. We'll do that in a second. I've mentioned that we want to have several projects, so I will actually add some other projects. So I will add one more agile project. I will not pick the scope here, or should I? No, I will not pick scope here. At the moment, I will actually show you the other way to define the scope. So I will create a box that at the moment is empty. By the way, you can see that we already have some information here. So you see that at the moment, all the issues in the agile box are in a status to do. So we created agile project 2 box, and now we can click more actions here and go into configuration of this box. In the configuration, there is a section called scope definition, where we can define what kind of issues goes into the box. So the thing that I've shown you earlier, just picking the project, is available also here. So we can pick agile projects 2, and all the issues from agile projects 2 will be put into the box. You can see here at the bottom information about how many issues are pulled in. But you can actually pick some more advanced options. So you could just pick a board. So if you have a team that is working on a specific Jira board and they have all their issues on this board, you do not have to, try to select a project and later remove the issues that are not needed or anything. You can just pick the board that the team is working on. I won't do that at the moment. And the other option is to use the filter. So if you have a filter defined in your instance that selects the issues that you find interesting, that you find relevant for this box, you can pick this filter. Important is that this filter has to be public. So if it won't be public, if it's available only to you, it won't be any use here. And if you decide what kind of issues are coming in, you can actually narrow down issues. So for example, if I picked a project and there are some subtasks that I do not want to see here, maybe the subtasks are too granular information for me to display them in the box, I can actually add this here. So issue type is different than subtask. Yep. So yeah, let's save this. I should see everything from this box except the subtask. So let's get back to the overview. Let's stay. It didn't save? It did. No, it should be okay. So back to overview, leave the page. And yeah, you can see that we already have some information in this box. Let's go into the Gantt chart and we'll see that, yeah, there are 2 epics with some tasks, no subtask on them. So it's great. Okay, so let's get back to our home view. We'll create one more project, the hybrid one. So I mentioned that we'll have several projects, some agile, some hybrid, or waterfall. So again, I'll click add here. I'll switch to hybrid. And here I will pick the project that I created earlier, hybrid project 1, end date. Let's start with changing start date. So we'll start this project in 2 months and end it sometime in a year. Okay, again, information here should appear in a moment. By the way, here we can also switch for different views. So I like the timeline. I do not like the Kanban. I will not cover it. But here you can see that actually I have the portfolio that I created. We see on the timeline when it starts, when it ends. And we see for each particular project where it starts, where it ends. So at the moment, my Agile Project 1, I've picked other end date, but it was updated due to iterations. When we'll start adding new iterations, this project will get longer. So let's get back here and talk a bit about our how to integrate this iteration with what teams are usually working on in Jira. Well, actually, before we'll go into how to use this iteration or this lower level box, I did not show you one more module because it was hidden for the box I was using for presentation. But now for Agile Project 1, we will be able to show that. And this is very Agile oriented module. It's called the board. And here you will see all the lower level boxes. So in this case, I have only one box iteration, but it is used for planning of this iteration. So here on the left, you can see the backlog. So all the issues that are within my box, within the Agile 1 project. And I can actually start drag and dropping them to do the plan for this iteration. So I'm basically deciding what kind of tasks will be done in this iteration. Obviously, if there would be more lower level boxes, then we would see more columns here. We could decide to which iteration task is planned or is assigned to, but we'll return here after we'll do some configuration. Because what I wanted to show you is that earlier I created for myself the project that I've been using to put the to define the scope of the boxes. Let's go to Agile Project 1. So you can see that here I have some issues and I actually created a sprint. I've put some tasks into this sprint, and this is very often the case. So even if you are not using BigPicture at the moment, your teams are usually using other Jira features. Nearly everyone working in a Scrum, if not everyone, is using the boards and the sprint functionality. So possibly if you're introducing BigPicture to an environment that is already working, you will have some sprints and people that are used to planning work on this board. So now, if we're introducing BigPicture, you might be a little bit worried. So, okay, I've just shown this board module where I can do the planning for the sprints, but my teams are planning here. I do not want to move them because, you know, they are used to that. and I do not want to maintain two different plans at the same time, right? Because it's unnecessary overhead. Fortunately, BigPicture allows us to synchronize this. So I can create a setup where everything that will be put into this sprint will be visible as part of the iteration that I created in BigPicture. And also everything that I put into iteration will be moved here into the sprint. So we'll do this in a second. But before that, let's define the teams. So let's get into BigPicture. So I've mentioned that for our use case, we have a global teams. We could define exactly the same teams for each of these projects, but it wouldn't be great. So if the team changes, some person leaves the team or joins the team, we would have to update it everywhere. What we'll do is we'll actually use the global teams. So on the home level, we can access team module. So actually you can also notice that we can access modules, specific modules for the boxes also from this menu. And in the home, the team module is called global teams. So we have 3 of the teams defined at the moment. We can click through them, see who is member, from where to when, what is the availability. Let's create a new team. So we'll create a new team. Let's call them koalas. And yeah, we'll skip the board. So we'll just creating the team, and we can select the user who is a member of a team. Bob, start date, yeah, from tomorrow, 100%. Let's just keep it 1 person. We could obviously add more person here. We could define that the person joins the team sometime in the future, and we could also define the changes in availability for these teams, because often users work for multiple teams. So 50% for one, 30 for other, 20 for other. We can change this availability here. It could also change with time. So if we click at Bob, you can see that there is a membership entry. I could actually add a new membership entry for Bob. So now you will see that starting from tomorrow till 27th, he's working for this team for 100%. And starting from 28, he's working for 50%. So we can, the availability of a person for the team can vary with time, but I'm removing the second membership. For now, the koalas is just a Bob for 100%. Awesome. So we have a global team defined. Let's switch back to the overview. And now we need to tell BigPicture that these global teams should be available here, because there can be a different setup. Sometimes for company there are global teams, but there is 1 or 2 specific projects that do not use the global teams, have their own specific team. That's not our case. So we'll just define that the global teams should be available on all the lower level boxes. So let's go into Agile Project 1. We'll go into the teams. And you can see that we have 3 options here. Create new team. It would basically, this is basically what you've seen before on the global level. So I could create new team, decide the members. But I can assign existing team. I will just be able to pick a team, and it will take the team from the top and make it available in my box. So you can see that there is an indication that it is a team taken from higher level. And I cannot modify the members of this team because they are managed globally. If I change the list of the people who are within this team on the home level, on the global level, it will change everywhere where I assigned this team. So this is what we want, because we really have a global teams in our case. So let's assign 1 more team, koalas that I just created, and maybe 1 more team, elephants. Yeah, assign. Let's do that for other projects. So we'll switch to projects 2. It will take us just a second. Bisons, bisons, assign. Elephants. I hope that I'm assigning all the right teams. And koalas. Yeah, okay, I'll do that for all the projects. I'll actually assign all the 4 teams and to return to you in a second. Okay, and thanks to the magic of video editing, we now have all 4 teams assigned to all 3 of our projects. So we are actually using the global teams, and we can take a look at the board in Agile Project 1. You'll see slight change here. So now you will see the swim lanes for each team. So you'll see that for iteration, we can actually assign work not only to specific iteration, but also to specific teams. Okay, I've told you that now we'll work on how to synchronize the sprint that is on Jira board with this iteration. So where we need to go is we need to go into configuration. Tasks scope definition, we've been here before, but in the case where there is a lower level box, there is a new section here at the bottom. So you can see our boxes, our lower level boxes. At the moment it's only 1, but whatever. And we can tell BigPicture based on what the synchronization should be done. So here we have a sprint field. Let's go into the project and access the issue. So you'll see that in fact when we put an issue into specific sprint, the sprint field value is updated with the name of a sprint. Yeah, I do not think I added it to the screen, but Jira stores the information about the sprint in a custom field basically. So we'll copy this value. We'll go back into BigPicture, configuration, and we'll put this information here. So now what we're doing, we can pick this sprint, is we are telling BigPicture that if an issue has in a sprint field value AP sprint 1, it actually should be in the iteration box. It also works the other way around. If we put something into iteration box, BigPicture sets this value in the sprint field and the Jira understands it as part of a sprint. So actually what we could do is we could select the board from which we want to select the sprint. So we filter out board, and now we could pick a sprint from the drop down. At the moment I have only 1 sprint, so it's easy. Let's do that and let's save it. Okay, so it might take a few seconds, but let's actually return. Let's see the board. Oh, awesome! So it worked faster than I expected. So last time we've been here, there was nothing in here. Now there are 4 issues, because if we'll go into the project, there are only 3. We can investigate this in a second. Possibly there should be no issue from the other box. So we'll check that in a moment. Let's get back into the BigPicture and see what issues are there. Board for issues. Yeah, it explains everything. So we have here the subtasks, and the subtasks are not displayed on the Jira board. So everything seems to be correct. This particular box just does not exclude subtasks. So let's do the planning, and let's say that we want to have additional task in the sprint, task 6, and let's maybe assign it to one of the teams. Let's assign it to the Bisons. Okay, BigPicture puts these tasks into the iteration. Let's go back into the project and see. It was put over here. Let's click on the task, and actually here we can see how BigPicture assigns tasks to the team. You can see that in the label, a very specific label was put team #bis. It means Bisons. So doing the planning from 2 sides, we can also leave the planning to the team, ask them to do the planning here on the Jira board if they're used to that, and all the plans that they will do here will actually be reflected in BigPicture, so we will be able to monitor how they progress and how they work. So let's enable the board for classic project, and yeah, task 2 that I've put there is actually also visible here. Awesome, so we already have synchronization. It looks really nice, but if there would be 5 sprints, or with each next sprint, does that mean that we need to get back to the configuration and set the value to make sure that the mapping with the next iteration is correct? Not necessarily. So let's get into configuration again and talk some other things that we have here. So first of all, in theory, we could select here that each team has a different mapping value. This is useful if each team has its own board and each team works on the different board. We want to synchronize all of them. That's not the case for us, but in theory, we could put separate sprint for all the teams. What is now great thing about BigPicture is that we can select here next time box template. Let's save it. What it will do is that it will understand that if we'll create a new iteration box, no, we do not want that. We want that, yeah. If we will create new iteration box, so iteration 1 or iteration 2, BigPicture will understand that there is a next sprint that should be created and that should exist on the board in Jira that we picked. So we selected that. Let's go back to the board and let's actually create a new iteration. So we could create the iteration from the home view as any other box. So you remember that we could go here and create iteration by clicking here, but we can also create it from the board level by clicking here the plus, add time box. You can see that BigPicture suggests as iteration 2, it suggests a start date and end date. So the start date is put on the next day, or yeah, so basically the iteration ends and the next day iteration 2 starts. And the end date is suggested based on the length of iteration. So let's create it. Okay, we have new iteration. Let's put in task 1 there for now, for elephants. Yeah, there. Let's look into the configuration and see how BigPicture behaved. Because this new box should be here. Okay, so you see that we have now iteration 2, separate box here, and we actually have sprint and sprint value pre-filled. So BigPicture understood that we have AP1 sprint 1 here, so possibly AP1 sprint 2 will be the next one. And it pre-filled it automatically thanks to the fact that we have this new time box template selected. Great, so we now have 2 iterations in BigPicture with, in theory, synchronized sprints, but unless new sprint appeared also on the Jira board, it doesn't really make sense, right? Because this value AP1 sprint 2 only makes sense and will fully sync if the same sprint was created on the board in BigPicture. So let's have a look there. We're going to Agile Project, and you can see that in fact BigPicture created a new sprint and already put the task there. So not only BigPicture synchronizes existing sprints with the iteration boxes that we created, it also creates new sprints for new boxes. So it's really nice. You can do the planning in just one place, and BigPicture will make sure that information is properly reflected in both of these places. So we're getting back into BigPicture again, and now we can have a look at our board for Agile 1 project and see some more details. So basically we can see what tasks are planned for what iteration. We can already see here some dependencies. So this is dashed here. This is a strong dependency that we created on the Gantt chart, but we can also create a dependency here just by drag and dropping. And yeah, I've created a dependency. You see that it is now green because there is a proper order of tasks in iteration the task that should be done first is done, and then in next iteration the following is done. If we would by mistake put the tasks in the wrong order, it cannot be moved due to it's a subtask, and possibly the parent is, we did not move the parent from other iteration. So let's create the dependency here. You can see that if there is a dependency between tasks in the same iteration, it's not green, it's gray. And if we make it wrong, it will actually be yellow. Did I move the right task? It will be yellow, so BigPicture will indicate that I think that this is my environment playing me tricks. Let me refresh the page. And you can see that the tasks that are in the wrong order, or the dependencies that are not okay, are in the wrong direction, are marked yellow. Okay, so for now I will just collapse the dependencies. I do not want to see them too much, because with too many dependencies there is spaghetti of, the arrows are just all over the place. I can collapse the dependencies, then I will see them just as an indicator here. I can click and see what is the dependency between, with what other task the dependency exists. But let's have a look what else we have on this board. So at the moment, we have information about how much work is allocated compared to what is the team capacity. Team capacity is calculated based on the amount of members in the team and for how much time they are working in the team. So, there will be people working only 4 hours per day. They will contribute less to the capacity than people working full time. But we can also override the dependency. So here, if I hover over the team, you can see that this team has 38.5 story points of capacity. So I want to change it to 40 because this team is doing exceptionally well. Save. So now we can see that I actually have 5 story points out of 40 story points of capacity of this team for this particular iteration plan. So possibly I can move more issues here. And by the way, on the list of an issues that we see here, we can actually also manage columns. So usually I add here a story points because this is how we do the Agile planning. And I am able to see how many story points. I think I've picked the wrong story points. Maybe nothing is set. But basically, from this level, we can set and see how many story points each task has. So if we are putting something into the iteration, we know how much work we are actually putting. So we see the capacity for each team and global for the whole iteration, and separately for next iterations too. So we are able to plan work for each team, for each iterations, and we also can monitor the dependencies between different iterations and between different teams. So I will enable the expanded view. So for example, I do not have that kind of example at the moment. Let me move this here, for example. We can see that these two tasks are done by different teams. There is dependency between them. So probably these two teams should talk to each other to decide when each task will be done, to make sure that there will be no problems with that. So in that case, this probably should be done later, this potentially earlier. So we have this, again, this is a subtask. I cannot move it without moving the task. But we could replan it to earlier iteration if that would be a task, to make sure that this is delivered before the following one will be started. What else do we have here? So we can actually change the information that we see here. So we have been looking at capacity, how much work we assign to the teams and what is the capacity of the teams. But we could also change to the work progress. So this will display us information about what is the progress of work, as the name suggests. So at the moment, we see that whole 0 issues out of 13 is done. Well, it doesn't count actually issues, it counts story points from the issues. So if we would move one of these issues to done, it would increase the value here. We can actually do that in a second. And by the way, the information that we see here is also editable. So we are at the moment displaying the essentials view. We could switch to the other, but let's actually manage card view, edit essential, and add additional information. So I'll add story points because this is something that will be useful. And status we have here, we can also add assignee, just so we know to whom this is assigned. Okay, let's save it. Let's go back to board. Okay, so let's have a look at this task. We see that it is estimated for 5 story points. Status done. Let's open it. We will assign it to me, just so we see the change on the task level, and we will actually mark it as done. Awesome. So let's go back to BigPicture, to the board view. Here we are. Yeah, and you can see that this task is marked as done, it's assigned to me, and now we have information that 5 out of 13 story points planned for this iteration is done. This equals 38%. So here we are able to see what is our team velocity. Are we over allocating each particular team for this iteration or not? Or they have a room and we can put more. So this is pretty awesome module when it comes to agile planning. The main advantage it has over standard Jira board and standard Jira sprints is that here we have a clear separation what is done by which team, and we are able to monitor dependencies between iterations and between teams. It's very nicely visually shown. This is not something that Jira without the BigPicture offers, sadly. Okay, so we basically did the setup for Agile project. So we have the main box representing our Agile project. We have boxes for our iterations or sprints, 2 of them at the moment. We can obviously add the next ones so that we can plan work for each specific iteration. But now, what can we do in hybrid? So basically, what if we have a project where part of the work is done in agile manner? So let's say that low-level tasks or stories and subtasks are done by teams in an agile manner, but on the higher level, we still need waterfall approaches, and maybe part of the tasks are done in waterfall approach. So what I will do is I will work on the hybrid project. I will create iteration and sync them with the iterations that are in the hybrid project. So basically I will do exactly the same as for Agile project and return to you with this so we can take next steps and see how can we take this configuration a step further so that it builds on it and gives us some possibilities when it comes to hybrid projects. Okay, so we're back. I have now a hybrid project with iterations underneath. These iterations are synced to the sprints that are in the hybrid project. I actually had to do 2 things to be able to do these setups that I did not have to do in Agile project. So first of all, by default, BigPicture does not allow us to put iteration type of a box under a hybrid project type of a box. So I had to go to the BigPicture configuration, box types, go into iteration and define that hybrid project can actually be a parent of iteration. By default, just a hybrid stage is a parent of iteration, can be parent of iteration. So we would have to create a hybrid project type, then hybrid stage and iteration underneath. That's the setup that I do not want to do right now. And the second thing is that we still want to have the board available in this hybrid project box because we still want to do the agile planning. It was not available by default, so I had to go into the configuration of this box, basics, modules, and basically enable this particular module. I can disable some others, but that I won't be using now, but let's keep them like that for now. So we have the hybrid project with iterations. We have the board. We have the lower level iterations that are actually synced with the sprints. Now for the, so we can see there are synced with sprints. For the hybrid approach to make sense, we actually need to somehow sync the issues that are in iterations with the Gantt chart. So basically most of the planning will be done on Gantt chart, but some of the issues will be set or will be planned from iteration perspective, and we need to see this information reflected on Gantt chart. So to do that, let's go into scheduling, and you can see that here we have task period alignment. What it does is, if we put task in the box, if there is alignment, so there are three options: precise alignment, smart adjustment, no alignment. Let's just focus on precise and no alignment for now. If we put task in the box that has no alignment, nothing will basically change. So it will be in the box, but box has start and end date. Task may have completely different start and end date than the box, and BigPicture will not care about that. But when we enable precise alignment, each time we put this task in the box, it will be the start and end date of a task will be aligned to the start and end dates of the box. So we do not want to do this on a hybrid project, because then all the tasks that are in a hybrid project would start and end in the same time as hybrid project. But we can click here, set alignment on the lower levels. Let's do that. We can select iteration, so we want to set alignment on iteration level, and put precise alignment. Let's update this and get back to board. So at the moment we have one task in iteration, one task or no tasks in iteration 2. Let's put something in here also. And now let's actually switch into the Gantt chart. So you can see that some of the tasks are basically still 1 day, but for others, some start and end date appeared. Let's expand everything. Now, this start and end date of these tasks correlate to the sprints that we've put them into. So we can actually make it visible. If we click here and click on the time boxes, we will see all the iterations that we have created with their start and end dates on the timeline. So you see that I've put one task in iteration 2. It was put and aligned with the start date and iteration, and there were other tasks in iteration 1. Let's go back into board and put something more to iteration 3. Maybe we move something from iteration 1 to iteration 3. So let's move task 1 from iteration 1 from iteration to iteration 3. Awesome. We'll see that it will update on the Gantt chart also. Exactly, task 1 was moved to iteration 3. So you can see that you may have parts of a task plan wholly or only in waterfall approach. So let's say that task 4 is planned solely waterfall, task 6 too. We'll create a dependency here. We'll put something in here. And part of them can be planned in an agile way. So basically, we won't create dependency here, because then it will move the tasks from out of iteration. We will create a soft dependency in the board. So task 3 or task 6. Yeah, let's do it from the issue level. So we'll go into Gantt and we'll say that task 6 blocks are task 3. So as I mentioned, and as you may remember, dependencies are done as links between the issues. So we will create a dependency by creating links. Yeah, it blocks HP1 3. This was the one. No, this is 5. This one, link. Okay, we'll return to the hybrid project Gantt chart, we will enable also soft links. So now, yeah, I think I didn't create a link, so I will check that in a second. So it's pretty important. You can see that there are two types of links, strong and soft. So strong ones are the ones that are created here on the Gantt chart. And the strong links are the ones that if we push the task on the timeline, or in general move it on the timeline, it will also affect the dates on the dependent task. So it's very waterfall oriented. Soft ones, on the other hand, are the links that we are creating here on the Gantt chart. So actually, let's do it like that. For now, I will put it here. There is, okay, here we can see the soft dependency. These do not affect the start and end date. So if I would move these tasks later into the future, it would not push the task 1 actually on the timeline. So we can take a look at that. Let's get back to Gantt. The dependency should be visible now. Yeah, I moved the task into the iteration. That was why it was put into iteration. Let's assume that we have these tasks planned in waterfall approach. Now we have that it has a soft link with the task in iteration 3. So we are actually able now to see the plan for the tasks planned in the waterfall, plan for the tasks that are planned agile, so we see in which iteration each task is done, and we see the dependencies between the two, so we can try to move around the tasks to make sure that all of them are done in proper order and everything is as it should be. No problems with our plan will occur. Okay, so with our current configuration, we have a way of planning the agile projects using a board and separate iterations and syncing with a Jira board. We have a way of planning agile hybrid approaches or projects. So basically we can plan part of the tasks in the board as in iterations and part of the tasks here normally in Gantt chart, and later create dependencies between the two. And as a result, we also have a way of planning waterfall approaches, because we could just not use the board module and do all the planning with creating dependencies and setting start date, end date on the Gantt chart only. So what we are left with is the resource planning. And before we'll move to that, let me take a step back here. So yeah, you can see that basically thanks to all of our modules, we have a way of planning and monitoring progress of work in each of the projects. But also we have some possibilities on portfolio level. Here we have some aggregations, and we will also be going into some of the portfolio modules to get a whole overview. But for now, let's go quickly, for example, into Agile project. One way of planning the capacity was using the board, because here we have the information about capacity or work progress. In this case, you remember that I switched what was displayed here. But also we could move into the resource module, which is not available here for this module, so I will just quickly enable it. I think it was enabled for hybrid approach. Okay, so we can switch to resources and see how much work is assigned to each person or each team. So at the moment, yeah, basically most of the work that I have is not assigned to any team. I can assign some of the tasks, but yeah, we see how much work is for each team. And I think I have to switch here for the story points, as we are doing in Agile planning in story points. So you can see how many story points I have available in a specific period, in this case a week, for each team. And clicking, as I mentioned before, yeah, no story points here. So I must have not estimated these particular tasks. Anyway, if they would have estimated story points, I'm actually surprised they do not have. We would see here how much story points is assigned for each specific team in each time period. But all of this information is only information from this particular project. So you might remember that one of the things that we wanted to address by this setup is to have a global teams and have a global overview of resources. So that's why now I will switch into the training portfolios or the portfolio view. And here you will see that I actually see the issues from all the projects. So you see that here is Agile Project 1, here is Agile Project 2, and somewhere I suppose we'll also see, yeah, there are some issues from Hybrid Project 2. So on portfolio level, we see all lower level issues. And here, if there would be an estimate, I will actually put them in a moment, and after the cut show you how it looks with estimates. We will see what is the allocation for all the users, for all the teams from all projects. We will see a good overview of what is happening in the whole company. And if we over allocate a team, we will see it here. So basically it will be a scenario when probably two project managers will have to talk to each other to decide what is the priority, which task or task from which project should be done earlier or later. So I'll cut it here and I'll return to you when I have some data that I can actually give you solid examples with. All right, so I'm back with some data. We'll focus on the Bison's team. So you remember that we are now on the portfolio view. So we see the tasks from all the lower level projects. And at the moment we are displaying information, or we are doing the planning based on the story points. We could switch to original estimate because obviously story points may not be used everywhere, especially for non-agile projects. But just to simplify, for now, we are focusing on story points. So let's have a look here. We have several tasks, in this case planned from one project. So maybe let's reassign this one. Oh no, sorry, there were some tasks from AP1. And we can see here that the capacity, or the remaining capacity of this team changes with time because the workload changes. So the more tasks we assign to the team, the less remaining capacity they have. Actually, we will enable also the capacity. So now we have free information, we have capacity of the team. So we see that in theory, this team should be able to deliver 3.5 story points per day. And of that, 1.44 is still remaining on this particular day, on the 4th of October, and 2.6 is assigned. Obviously, for the agile planning, we probably won't look from day-to-day perspective. We may want to change the aggregation to weekly, for example, and then we will see from weekly perspective that okay, we have that many story points should be delivered this week, and out of that we have assigned at the moment nearly 6, so over 11 still remaining. We can put more for the team, but I will for now change the aggregation to daily just to show you something. So now at the moment, if we click on an issue, we see the details, we see also how many story points are here. So if we increase on one of these values, let's say that I will increase this one to 10. No, actually it did not change a lot yet. Yeah, so now I increased some values, and you can see that on this particular day we over allocated the team, but this is over allocation that is for all the projects. So if we would go, for example, to AP1, Agile Project 1, the team would still not be over allocated because the over allocation actually comes from the fact that I increased the estimate, or the story point estimate, in Hybrid Project 1. So it is important to, in that kind of setup where you have global teams, it is important to do the planning on the project level, obviously, but also switch to portfolio and see if from all the projects team is not over allocated from the tasks from all the projects, because we may be working on our project, everything may seem fine, and then it will turn out that everyone thought the same and everyone from all the project assigned 100% of team capacity to this team. So we need to switch to higher level to see the overall allocation. And actually we could do the planning from this level. We could move the tasks around. So for example, I will now reassign it to elephants. It's nearly okay. So the bisons at the moment is not over allocated, the elephants are, but maybe it's not that bad. So because again, I'm doing the estimation from story points perspective. Usually we do not want to do the planning from day to day perspective on story points. So let's do the weekly aggregation. And now it seems that elephants can actually handle. So maybe they won't deliver this particular issue on Monday, but considering the whole week they have enough work, they even have more room to spare. Okay, I think that's it for this training. I hope it was useful. So you can see that BigPicture allows us to create the whole structure of projects. We may have portfolio projects, lower level elements, whether they are iterations or project stages or phases, and later have both overview of what is the progress. So we can see on each level on the portfolio project in particular phases. We can do the planning, agile, hybrid, waterfall, and we can have an overview of what is our resource situation, and we can manage resources in general. So we can do this both on a project level if we have a teams dedicated to projects, but if we have a global teams, we can make a setup that will allow us to track overall allocation and make sure that that all the projects are not over allocating the teams. So basically we are able to make the information visible for everyone, and thanks to that coordinate the work of everyone. So hope it was useful. That's all for this training, and hear you next time.